Hello YouTube! So today I want to show you guys my 15 favorite and most used weekly spreads. They are all just basic formats, and so for each one you can add your own tweaks and decorations to make that even more unique. I'm just showing you the bare bones structures of them. I also of course add more elements to each spread ideas to bring it more alive, and I use different formats depending on how my next week is going to be, because I usually set up on Saturday than the week before. So I will go over how and when I use each spread. So going in, my first spread is just 8 boxes and 2 pages. I think a lot of planners already use this format because it's just so versatile. It gives you enough space both vertically and horizontally. I use this format when I really don't know what the next week will be like, so I can be prepared for anything to come. Also, this is a very quick spread to make, so if I'm really busy or lazy to make elaborate spreads, this would be my fallback. So you can just throw quick stickers and washi tapes and you're done. On the 8th box, I put a notes section, but you can also leave it blank and use it for a decoration section, so you have even more decorations you can do. On the next spread, some people love it, some people hate it, but I like it on certain weeks. So this is a simple horizontal spread, and I know some people don't like it because it doesn't give you enough vertical space and you need to like double up, but I actually love it for that reason. When I have a bunch of events and tasks, I want to create different spots for my events and my to-dos. So I would have invisible line down the middle, and I keep my events on the left side and my to-dos on the right. This is another quick spread to make, so I usually use this spread when I'm busy and I know next week I have a lot of events coming up, so I can keep events and tasks separate. Versus on the previous layout, if event pops up midweek, then I have something like event, task, and then event, so which can get mixed up and visually hard to follow. And here I left it blank so you guys can see. You guys can use this space for decorations or notes. You can quickly draw another line down here to make it another notes section. My third spread is a vertical spread for all my vertical weekly lovers. This is a popular format as well, and is used by a lot of different planners like Hobonichi, the Common Planner, and etc. I also love a nice long vertical weekly when I have lots of things to get done. So this is the best format for me to make lists. So on weeks that I know I don't have too much events coming up, but just a bunch of stuff to get done, I will make a vertical weekly like this. But one thing I actually don't like about vertical weekly is that it gives you very limited horizontal space. So it's only 6 dot grid spaces across. So what I like to do is this vertical weekly also, but stacked weekends. And this is just an example of you don't have to make boxes super long like the previous spread, because I don't end up using all this space anyways. I mean, if you have a bunch of stuff to do, you can always make the boxes longer, but what I like to do up here is decorations. Or I will also position boxes differently so it's more decorative. And I know a lot of people don't like stacked weekends on planners, and I wouldn't like it either if it was every week. This is a special kind of week where I have a bunch of stuff to do and I'm probably gonna be exhausted towards the end of the week, so I wouldn't have much plans on weekends anyways. In those particular weeks, I don't mind having stacked weekends. On my 5th weekly spread idea is similar to my first one in that it's just 8 boxes, but I made it tinier. I actually use this smaller box style quite a bit when I know I don't have that much going on that week, so I have a lot of space for decorations. And just like the last spread idea, I will position boxes differently so I can get a different look each time. Next spread idea is also well known. It's what I like to call rolling weekly. I think Amanda Rich Lee calls it that. I don't know, I heard it from somewhere. But I love to use this spread when I know I have tasks that kind of have to roll over to the next day. So when I'm working on like a big project, I will use this layout so I don't have to keep writing the same to-do every day. I can just write it once and keep making checkboxes throughout the week. And it's nice to keep my events on one side of the page, so it's nice and easy to follow events as well. Usually when I do this layout, I'm working on a big project, which means I don't have too many small tasks to do. So I don't need this much space. Of course, if you want to break down big projects into smaller tasks, you can keep all this space, but I don't really tend to do that. So what I'll do with all these space down here is I can draw another box to make a note section or just a doodling section, because big projects give you stress and decorations helps you relieve stress, at least for me. My next layout is also used when I'm working on big projects, but this is like a pre-planning step. So I need a huge note section just to brain dump all my thoughts and organize my plan of action, while I can have brain dump section like a spread separately. Sometimes I just like to have it tied to a certain week. So when I'm thinking of this week, I know that this is the brain dump that I did on that week. So on the left side of the spread, I just have a simple horizontal layout with a line dividing in the middle for events and tasks. Usually when I'm planning a new big project, I don't really have too much events or smaller tasks to do, so this space is usually enough for me. I think this is also a similar layout to Hobonichi weeks, just in an A5 version, so it's a little bit more spacious. My next couple of layouts are for when I need a lots of notes, rolling tasks, and individual day tasks, and even a space for next week's plan of action. I love bullet journaling, but one thing I absolutely hate is that because of the nature of bullet journaling, I can't have next week prepped in advance. I always set up my next week on Saturdays, so until then I need to use future log if I want to plan ahead. But when I have a bunch of things to do next week, I don't like clogging up my future log or my monthly spread too much. So in that case, what I like to do is make a next week section. Of course, in all the previous layouts, you can always swipe out the note section for next week's section, but I particularly love this layout because it gives me space to put down notes and rolling task and next week. So I will use this space when I have a lot of things going on and I need to juggle a bunch of stuff, or if I have a big project that I want to break down into smaller parts. In that case, I would write big tasks under the task section, and this would be going on throughout the week. And then on the dailies, I can write smaller parts that make up these big tasks. And if stuff comes up that I need to wait to do in the future, I can write down in the next week or more future box. And of course, I can jot down any notes as they come up. In a similar concept, I have a horizontal layout. Here I left the next week section blank, so you can see that if you want, you can have that section for decorations as well. I use this layout similar to how I used the previous one, but when I don't have as much events, because it gives you a lot less vertical space but doesn't give you as much horizontal space either to double up as I did on the second spread idea. So why would I use this layout? It's for when I have tasks that I need to do some explaining. So you know when some tasks are a bit wordy, so I have horizontal space to write down more details into that task, versus the previous spread, there's not that much space to branch off of a task. Or I can use my 10th spread idea, where it's kind of ripping off of my 5th layout but adding notes and task sections horizontally, so I get a bit more square shape for the dailies. I don't particularly like this layout for the task section because I like to make lists with my to-dos, but I live with this and I really don't want to sacrifice horizontal or vertical spaces for my dailies, but still need all these sections. And of course, if you don't want to sacrifice anything, you can do Dutch door style. So you have plenty of spaces for each day, note section, and rolling task, and even next week. And you can always switch out any of these sections sections for decorations. I love this layout because you get plenty of spaces for everything and you can see tasks and notes no matter what day of the week you are in. Unfortunately, I can't do this layout too often because then I wouldn't have enough space for anything else, and I would love to keep 2 journals per year. I like to have everything in one journal or planner for each year, but I made my peace with being 2 journals because it was just impossible, but I will not go more than 2. So while I love this layout, it's not something that I did too often. My next layout is something I actually haven't used much this year because I'm using the weekly supplement from Hobonichi that I do time blocking on. But I love this layout so much last year because of the time blocking element. When I have a lot of events coming up, I like to see it visually how my week would look like. So I would time block here and write my tasks on this side. I have here from 8 to 12, but if you can also change the timeline by squeezing this section a little bit or making each hour 1 grid rather than 2 I have here. Also, I drew thinner lines going across for each hour just so that it's easier to follow when you're like on Friday. And here you can divide up the boxes into 7 days if you don't like to have one big to-do list for the entire year. Or what I like to do was flip the timeline so you have a bit more space for to-dos here. And I also divide up the sections into 7 days. That also lines up with the time block. I like this layout because it gives you more space for the task, but I actually prefer the previous layout just because I don't have to rotate my journal too much when I want a quick glance. So when I don't want to rotate my journal but still want room for my tasks, I will use my next layout. So this weekly really works only when there are 6 days in the week. Like for example, Sunday is in the next month and I just have 6 days left in the month. I know it's kind of waste of space, but I like to keep my months completely separate. So on those days that I have 6 or less days in that week, I really enjoyed this layout. Here we get only 1 grid spaces for each hour compared to 2 before, but it gives you plenty of space for your to-dos. And I figure that if I do 4 boxes on each page, it makes it too small. So it might not work for everyone, but if you like to keep your weeks together, I guess you can just squeeze them a little bit tighter and make 4 boxes and have a note section or decoration. And my last spread is time blocking with Dutch door. I have all the tasks in this flap right here and time blocking on these big pages. And on this side, I would usually do some decorations with stickers or washi tapes. And I also have a note section here. So this layout gives you enough space to write all your tasks and time block without having to rotate the journal or leave some days out. Again, I love this layout, but I can't use this layout too often because it is eating up 4 pages for 1 week. Okay, that was all 15 weekly spread ideas that I actually use quite often and explaining in which situations I would use each layout. Of course, I add and tweak each layout to make it more unique for each week, and I would mix and match different elements from different layouts as well. So I hope I gave you some ideas for your weekly spreads, and if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. My goal is to reach 100 before this year ends, and I think it's doing pretty well. I have 70 subscribers. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye!